A single camera production. A single camera production is a piece of media filmed with only one camera. Production with high funding usually tends to use multiple cameras, which aids dynamics and time, and therefore single camera productions are usually films, TV, or animation. Because only one camera is used, a single camera production usually requires a lot of editing and scenes with multiple characters. Pros to single camera productions is that it's usually a lot cheaper due to the fact that less resources are used. Moreover, there's less footage to keep track of due to the fact that all footage will be available through one camera. It's also a lot easier to keep track of scenes as a collective, as all the footage will be together, chronological, depending on the order the scenes are filmed in, and on one SD card. However, single camera productions can be limited in terms of achievable shots, as only one camera is being used. This could lead to a lot of pressure throughout editing. It also means that footage hasn't been shot multiple times, and therefore understanding camera movement for continuity is very important, and moreover the safety of the footage should be taken seriously. Formats. Narrative. A linear narrative. A linear narrative is a story told in chronological order in terms of series of events. This is from beginning to end, refraining from flashbacks and flash forwards, and thus adding to the understanding of events taking place. EastEnders is a prime example of this, as the soap runs 4 out of 7 days a week and puts effort in the confidentiality of upcoming events. Soaps usually follow the methods of linear narratives to relate to content and contemporary times. A linear narrative is the usual choice for children's films, as it makes stories easier to understand. A linear narrative may also be seen as an educational narrative, revealing to younger audiences the usual method of sequential events. Open-ended. An open-ended narrative An open-ended narrative is a narrative with no foreseeable ending, usually focusing on more than one specific character. This results in multiple storylines, an almost multi-stranded narrative, and an obvious sense of real time within the narrative. This can often be depicted through Easter and Christmas specials, where the content references real-time events, i.e. might be snowing in Doctor Who. This is a common narrative for TV soaps, where there are no need for current foreseeable endings, for instance Hollyoaks. Non-linear. Content that uses a non-linear method often engages audiences, giving them more awareness of events than the characters of the text. This includes the beginning, middle and end, just not in that particular order. This is used for suspense and understanding, as well as character development and foreshadowing. The Social Network movie is an accurate example of non-linear narrative structure. In the case of this film, the events were quite well known to the audience, which meant flashbacks events such as the rise of Facebook and was information that the audience were aware of. It was information that fell between the jumps, which pushed the narrative ahead, whereas flashbacks helped with character and time development. Multi-stranded. A multi-stranded narrative tells more than one story. Where both events may be happening in parallel, the narrative shows different events happening at one time. This is a good method of character development, as well as visually adding dynamics and diversity. For example, in Inception, the narrative used a multi-stranded narrative to explore different dimensions, and this narrative can also be used to explore time, space and identity. This was fitting for the thriller, as it added to the suspense and created a multi-layered storyline which added mystery to the text overall. Author themes. Author themes is when the director has so much influence on his films, he is perceived as the film's author. This includes themes and motives of the director, such as themes of family displayed by David O. Russell. His films such as The Fighter, Silver Linings Playlist and American Hustle all imply family continue forming problems. Also, complex characters, career choices and love interests are all author themes throughout his work. The use of camera techniques also creates author themes. For instance, in the case of David O. Russell, his camera movements when the camera moves towards, away and around the characters can be seen in his films and is associated with his director style. Tim Burton as a director has author themes throughout his films, using the unique contrasting colour palette in his films. Nightmare Before Christmas, Edward Scissorhands and Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, although them being different films of different genres are all recognised as Burton films. Burton also regularly uses the same actors and voices in his films. Themes of rich versus poor and misfits personas can also be seen throughout his work. Tarantino is a director completely in charge of his films. This is evident throughout his unique styling, including his non-linear storylines and his high-level/violence of his films. His use of camera angles such as close-ups, point-of-view shots, as well as his themes of revenge can be seen throughout many of his films, and all support the auteur theory. He also, like Tim Burton, uses the same actors in many of his films. Samuel L. Jackson can be seen in Django, Kill Bill, Volume 2, Pulp Fiction, Inglourious Basterds, and Jackie Brown. Formats and conventions include in genre. Format conventions include conventional settings, conventional events, conventional roles. These are all specific to the genre of the film. Protagonists are usually the main character usually the main character is the one whose story is followed, either made to be victimized for audience sympathy. Their plans are usually altered through the fault of the antagonist. In more realistic genres, an antagonist comes in the form of human qualities, whereas in a horror film, an antagonist may possess supernatural qualities. Both protagonists and antagonists are conventions of the film. Genre refers to the element of narrative representing the overall style. For instance, cowboy western films usually have cowboys' guns and are set in desert, small western village and have a western accent. Overall, these are conventions of cowboy films, and audience members will be able to recognise this through these themes. Camera techniques include tilt shots, panning shots, zoom shots, tracking shots, cane shots, tracking with secondary foreground object, Dutch angles. Camera angles/shot size include establishing shots, close-ups, extreme close-ups, medium shots, over-shoulder shots, low angle, high angle, camera movements, the two-shot, wide long shot, master shots. Technical elements include mise-en-scène is creating the scene through props, costume and scenery. Sound is important for every piece of media. For the sake of narrative, sound should include must feel in place and natural. Examples of sound in production include diegetic sound, non-diegetic sounds, sound effects, ambient sounds, dialogue and off-screen sounds. Editing techniques include continuity editing. This is creating content with similar shots, creating a linear narrative for audiences to process. This also creates consistency. Discontinuity editing. When attempting this kind of editing, shots that seem out of place or perplexing for the audience will be used, rather than continuous shots. Cross-cutting. This is when more than one part of the narrative is occurring at one time. This can be seen in action films where the camera moves from one part of the action to the other. This can aid continuity in narrative, as this method can also be used in the same place at the same time. Use of montage. This helps with time in narrative. Montage is used to compress shots of similar nature, build character and establishing space in a short time. Split screen. Two scenes simultaneously on screen at the same time. This can be used for character contrast. Jump cut to show the expression of time. This is when the same clip is shortened. Jump cut to show an expression of passing time. This is when the same clip is cut to shorten the amount of time of screen time while still displaying time.